All right. Got folks coming in, so we'll give it a few minutes. Welcome to those who are coming in right now. I think we usually ask where people are coming in from, but let's mix it up today. How about what what TV show are you watching now? Like, what's your current favorite TV show?
Married at First Sight is where I am binging right now, which I don't
Really?
know.
I know, Andy. I know. I was gonna say I haven't had time to watch TV. I'm actually reading an Eric Larson book, but once I get back to TV, I need some good recommendations. So I'm hoping you guys can
I
help
don't,
me.
I don't know either of those Scavengers Reign or Your Honor.
Honor
Never heard of either of those.
Bridgerton. Okay.
I've
I
heard
watched
of
season
that
one
one,
of
not watching
Bridgerton,
it.
but then my husband kept making fun of me.
I'm rewatching The Shield. I hadn't
Oh,
seen it. Hadn't seen it in a while, so I decided to
Was
rewatch it.
MSP Shield the reason why? Did it inspire you?
It did. I know what Adam's going to watch. He's supposed to be watching IT Crowd here soon. So
Yeah.
Corey likes Bridgerton too.
Rin Home. What is it again?
Renham
Renham.
Industries.
Renham.
See,
Yeah.
Anthony says IT Crowd rocks.
World on Fire.
People are still coming in. So if you're just joining us, we've asked you to share your favorite or current favorite TV show. Game of Thrones, good one.
There you go. It's a good one.
That's a good one.
I'm waiting for House of Dragons to return.
Yeah. Suits. There were a couple Suits in there. I haven't seen
I like
them.
Suits. I
Yeah,
like
Suits is awesome.
Ardo. All right.
It's anime fans here.
Give it another minute or so. So I can scroll, mostly so I can scroll through these TV shows.
Well, you just crowdsourced your watch list, huh, Michelle?
I know.
Awesome.
Just copy that. All right, we still have folks coming in, so let's give it one more.
Better Call Saul. That's a
Why are
good
you
one.
laughing? That's a great show.
That is an amazing show. I didn't think that I would like it as much as Breaking Bad, but I ended up really enjoying that.
I wish I could go back and watch Stranger Things again from scratch. It's one of those ones like I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
Big Bang on repeat. All right. Fan of
All right.
Young Sheldon or anything there, Brian?
Oh, I've been watching Young Sheldon actually with my son. It's a little risque for him, but he thinks it's hilarious. So
the last season that they just aired was absolutely amazing.
Oh, Yellowstone. I think that's the first person I've seen say Yellowstone. I know a lot of people like that show.
Yellowstone is
looks
awesome.
like Charles Russian is asking for the transcript of the call. Is that so he can crowdsource the shows as well?
I hope so. All right. Keep leveling off if you want to get started.
Why is there a second Adam Steinhoff in the meeting? Or maybe
because you're sharing your screen.
Maybe. Yeah, okay. Because I see myself in my little four square here, and then I see a blank one with nothing. Okay.
All right. Well, let's kick it off. Welcome, everyone. We're going to talk with Adam Steinhoff, our product manager, and Ben Jones, and learn what's new in Unify.
All right. Well, welcome to the party, everyone. And we will get right into it. So the agenda today, we're going to talk about some stuff. I am going to rock through all of these honestly as quickly as I can while giving you the information you need and leaving time for Q&A at the end. There will be a brief demo where we will actually use Ben's token hijacking masterful little machine he's got there and show you what Unify does when it sees it. So we will roll through here real quickly. So what is Unify? You know, and I'm not going to read the marketing speak, but that paragraph really is amazing, Michelle. And I don't know if Amy wrote that with you or not, but ultimately, I'll jump into the techie speak here. But what Unify ultimately is doing is it is pulling in device data from right now the RMMs, and then it's using that device data to correlate information that we're getting from the SaaS providers. So 365, for instance, it'll leave us little breadcrumbs like, a device name or an IP address or a username or things like that. And we correlate that via Unify back to the RMM device. And by doing that, we are going to enhance the event data that we're getting and provide you a level of certainty that the action that was performed in the SaaS environment was done on a known managed device. I think I hit that right, Ben? Pretty good? All right. Cool.
Really good. Yeah, I'm gonna put it by myself.
All right, so current adoption. I'm excited to see this grow the way that it has, but at the same time, I'm really disappointed in the number of folks using Unify. It blows my mind every single time I see these numbers. So back in August, we had 80 partners and about 41,000 devices in and using Unify, with only about 4,500 that were actually mapped from an account to a person. And we were seeing about 1.5 million events per month that had enough data for Unify to do the things that Unify does. Snap forward to this month, or right at the end of last month, we're at 369 partners who have enabled Unify, and we're seeing about 186,000 devices, and 73,500 devices are actually mapped, and a ton of events. You've seen we definitely have put the work in to enhance the events that we're getting in a way that Unify, again, can do the magic that Unify does. And then what I think is really cool on this snapshot now is the number of respond rules that we see that are powered by Unify or that are enhanced by Unify. And we're seeing upwards of 400 of those now. So growing, but not nearly as fast as I would like to see. And I'm hoping that every person on this webinar today are folks that have not turned on Unify. And we're going to see looks like 104 turn on tomorrow would be amazing. So next up is kind of like, why even use Unify? And most often when I kind of looked at the respond rules that I'm seeing, and also just in my own design and moving around within Unify, we're seeing partners reduce noise. I'll go a lot deeper on that here shortly, and pull needles from the haystack. That one I'll give you a little more expanded use case as well. And then pinpointing token theft, which we are actually going to demo on this webinar, so you'll see that. And then a couple of other ones that I've heard in passing are just identifying machines that are using these SaaS applications that are not managed by the RMM. So you might have a policy in place that says you can't use it unless it's a managed device or a monitored device. We're going to help you figure that out. And then finally, just inventory management. So we do have a report that allows you to see the mappings that exist. And it's entirely possible that SaaS Alerts actually has the best mapping of an account to a device because we're actually seeing the usage happen on that device rather than just somebody going, well, I think this is Adam's. So moving on to the first case. Oh, by the way, you see questions rolling in. There are some that I'll go ahead and answer live if it just seems like a good jumping off point. And if not, I'll save them for the end, either because I think it's a longer answer, or I may actually address that as part of this slide deck. So I see the couple there, but I'll roll through here shortly. So first case on Unify is, or respond plus Unify, because ultimately Unify is just enhancing the event data that we're getting. Respond is really what is the hammer that allows you to do things with that data. So the first one is, let's increase the signal to noise ratio by turning down the volume on events occurring for managed devices. So a situation here could be Ben just logged in, for instance, and You know, he's on PTO sipping margaritas in Cancun, but he didn't tell the MSP that he was traveling, because that's the first thing you do, right? Then when you go on vacation, you call up your MSP and you say, hey, I'm going to be out of town, right?
The very first thing.
I bet that doesn't happen often. So because the logon occurred outside of the approved location, it would normally log a critical alert. And, you know, we, while a lot of the outside approved location ones are things that definitely want to be run down, you probably don't want to do it for Ben, who just forgot to tell you he was leaving. So the solution for this one would be you can adjust all of the outside approved location events down to low. And then you can actually use respond in conjunction with Unify to re-elevate those outside approved location events back to a critical state if it's not done on a managed device. So that one is a pretty common use case. The flip side to this one is the basically surfacing activity that would normally be considered uninteresting, but actually is a legitimate attack. So this one, and we're going to demo this here shortly, but let's say an account's token was hijacked. How do you determine that that token is being used on a non-approved device? Because today, the authentication event, unless it's outside approved location, is going to be low. And so I'll show you this shortly, that it is in fact low. So the solution to this one would be to utilize Unify to elevate the logins and other activity that are occurring on the non-managed devices. So those are the two most often respond rules that I see. All right, actually, let's talk. Let me roll through these questions here real quickly. So I'm gonna wait on Andy's. And is ConnectWise RMM still on the roadmap by Dwayne? Yes. The answer is that it is on the roadmap. I have been busting our butts really to get this enhancement out, and then we'll be refocusing back on additional products to integrate. Atera, there is not an integration with Atera yet. I'd like to. I think, Ben, is this the one you emailed me about the other day?
So yeah, we were working with Atera and just basically trying to get our events into their ticketing system. And yeah, so this is the same company that I was dealing with.
Cool. So you are more than welcome to reach out to their support team and request an integration to SaaS Alerts, and that might influence them enough to reach out to me, and I'd be happy to speak to any product manager over there. Next up, I've got one here for Andy Rowe. VSA 10 when? Very good question. Same kind of answer as the ConnectWise RMM that the other gentleman asked me about. So it is in the queue. It is high on my list. And now that this update is almost out the door, getting better or getting closer. I'm going to wait on Stephen King's answer here because that one will be addressed here shortly. And is Okta supported for identity? I think that that is not related to Unify, so I'm guessing here. But we do have an Okta integration. Now, as far as the identity goes for our platform, no, we don't use Okta to authenticate into our platform. If you want to throw maybe a little more detailed question, and I can circle back around on that one, Kristen. So, Barry, good question. I'll answer that one here shortly. All right, so moving on. Unify enhancements. So I went back. It was kind of cool. It was like, you know how like you go back and you look at pictures of your kids as they grew up over the years. I spent couple hours the other day actually literally reviewing every enhancement request, bug fix, whatever it was that had been put in place since Unify launched. There was 127 of them. These are the ones that I would favorite in my photo album to show you guys. So the first one was allowing mapping devices in mass. You know, initially it was literally one device at a time being mapped. And very quickly, our larger MSPs were like, I don't want to click the button 300 times. So we gave you the ability to set a kind of a water line or a baseline in confidence and select, 200, 300 machines at mass and hit map. That was pretty cool. The next thing that we did was added the real-time check for the IP addresses. So what we found was folks that were traveling from, like, let's say their house to a coffee shop to maybe a wireless device or something, cellular device, the IP addresses were changing before the RMM was registering that IP address changed, but actually after the Microsoft or whatever access had happened. So we were getting an event from Microsoft saying, hey, you're on 1.2.3.4, but the RMM still thinks you're on 2.3.4.5. And so when we see the right level of details in an event, but the IP doesn't match, we'll actually go out to the RMM, we'll pull the latest IP address and recompare it. And that, if I remember the numbers right, we increased the accuracy for about 40% when the IP address didn't match when we first launched that. The next thing that we did was the intra-device IDs. This one is still, not a lot of partners have implemented this, and it's the one thing that really, truly changes the game as far as accuracy and false positives when it comes to Microsoft goes. So if you're running Unify today and you haven't done the work to do the intra-device ID, I highly, highly recommend that you do so. What we're doing is we're running a PowerShell script against the device and writing that data, which is the intra-device ID, into a custom field in the RMM. We're pulling that out, and then we're comparing it to what we're getting from Microsoft. And it's about as close to certain as you can get when we see those. Next up was the device auto mapping. So we gave them the ability, or we gave you the ability to select, 300, 2,000 machines and hit map manually. The next step was, let's just do it automatically. Let's let you all set a certain confidence level that we expect to see, and anything above that, we're just going to map it. That was a very cool feature that came out in December of last year. Then we added the device report so that you can see what mappings are done for inventory or compliance purposes. And then early last month, we changed our text comparison algorithm to ensure that enhance the accuracy when looking at like device name and username and those types of things. So very, very happy about those enhancements. Let's talk about the reason that you're actually here. So what's new? So coming soon, my internal date that I guess as I say it to you will become an external date is June 10th. I want to have Unify v3 on our production environment, assuming that it passes all the rigorous QA that we do, that will come to fruition. Needless to say, it'll be released when it's ready, but I sure hope it'll be a week from now or so. So shared devices. It was one of the first things that I think people asked me about almost immediately upon launching Unify was, I have shared devices. Will you let us map shared devices? And I was, I don't want to say boneheaded, but I was dug in on not doing it for a very specific reason. And that reason never really came to fruition, but the yells and the begs and the asking me nicely really kept going on the shared devices. So that's coming now or soon. The other thing we did is a complete enhancement of the actual UI for Unify. So a lot of support tickets that I got wrapped into or called into were related to just not understanding what the data was telling you and questioning why this did this or what does this mean. So I really sat down and we rethought how to display that data. We changed the way that Unify presents its status out, which makes respond rules a lot easier. I'll show you guys that. And one of the other things that really annoyed me was, if Ben, for instance, has 3 machines and Ben mapped one of the machines, but then used the second machine, we would flag that second machine as an unknown machine, which basically kind of made it look like a hacker or an attack was happening, when in fact it was just Ben's other machine we didn't map yet. So that's changing with this new one. I'll show you that. We've also, we will be releasing auto unmapping. So as devices have kind of aged out of the RMM, or a particular account maybe has dropped from an 80% certainty to a 25% certainty because maybe they gave that computer to somebody else, we will unmap those devices now. And then finally, enhanced reporting. So we'll upgrade that report for Unify to be able to understand shared devices now, rather than just the single map devices that we had today. Ben, if you would just clap for me, that would be great. Just because, I bet everybody else is, but
I
it's
mean,
possible.
I think you're doing great, and I've been trying to keep up with the influx of questions that you're getting, so you're gonna have a lot of Q&A time.
Okay,
So.
good. So do I hold off on the demo a second and ask the questions? I feel like that's what we would do, right? Like we were talking about TV shows earlier and having, maybe we like do a little icebreaker here, or not the icebreaker. What do you call it? Cliffhanger. We'll do the
Yeah.
cliffhanger.
Well, and I asked in chat how many people are using Unify. I've gotten a lot of people that are already using it. So I would love to ask, here, everybody can hear me. If you are not using Unify, I guess why not? Is it the RMM, or is there a reason why you're haven't jumped off?
Well, that'd be good. I'll farm the answers to those questions here towards the end for sure. I'm gonna roll down the official Q&A here real quickly, just see device IDs. So Eric had mentioned in here, device IDs are only for Windows, not Macs. Now, I'd love to have somebody prove this wrong, because I think it might actually be, but we haven't seen a good way of connecting the Entra ID that Microsoft has assigned to the device. I think it requires an actual Mac management kind of MDM piece to be able to get that. That is something that I will be running down this year for sure. Let's see. So Dwayne asks, any chance you'll try the same approach with device ID or equivalent with Google Workspace device management? I absolutely think that is going to happen. We have done a ton of work with Google Workspace recently, and I think that is the next obvious answer. Right now, Google isn't providing us enough data in their events to be able to do Unify right now, and it drives me nuts. So I'd like to figure out the answer to that, and that might be one of the ways once we dig in a little bit further. All right, Andy asks, are we able to label devices as shared, or are we able to map user Entra IDs to a device Entra ID? How? I'm going to consider this answered. I'm going to show you in our interface, Andy, and if you find that that doesn't answer it, I'll let you ask another question, maybe once you've seen the interface. How about alerts? This is Andy again. How about alerts for stale devices from the RMM? They have not updated in 30 days. We don't do alerts, but we will be just giving you the ability to send them to the ignore list inside of Unify. There is a big paragraph. I'm going to sit on that one, and I'm going to get to the demo here. All right, demo time. All right. So Ben and I recorded this yesterday because doing this live just seemed like really risky and potentially ways for this to mess up and take 12 minutes when I really want to get this done in 10 or 2, sorry. So setting the stage here, I have a machine that's running Windows that I have my Microsoft account logged into. And I am going to open up my Outlook web access here and do my email for the day. And so I am just your normal user who loves to click on everything. And so in this particular instance, I got an email from Ben. I'm going to click it Also, by the way, the VM that I recorded this on was powered by like hamsters. It's pretty slow. All right, so I got this thing, Ben Jones. Oh my gosh, his resignation letter.
See ya.
Oh
I
man.
don't know why I sent it to you, but
Yeah, well, I like to know things. So Enrique, adios amigo. So I'm logging in here. I click the thing and hey, it's weird. To open this really important document, I must have to sign in again. No big deal. I'll go ahead and do that. So I'm going to log in and I'm going to do my MFA here in a second because, that's the best way to protect an account. Probably. All right.
25, I know your
So
number.
now what's happening in the background when I click this little yes button, Ben's magic on his server that I'm hitting is, oh, yeah, Steve, good call on the not legit site. So this is what's happening on Ben's side.
Yes. So we're picking up a little bit about the device it's connecting. And this is Evil Gen X. I'm sure some of you have, yeah, Jake has seen this before. And so we're picking up not only Adam's username and his password, also his MFA method. And he's approved, and it's pretty much redirected us, and he's off. I don't really care what's happened to him. But what I want is his session, which will give us his this cookie that I'm going to import into my browser. I'm doing this all from a device that is obviously not in an Adam's RMM. So I'm doing this the manual way. There is a very much automated method to do this, but this is just a little bit more dramatic. And there you go. No sign-in, no MFA, just all of Adam's delicious files and emails, his one email.
I have inbox 0 rules. That's what I do. Like I don't go home at the end of the day unless there's none.
Yeah, and I'm going to quickly set up myself a forwarding rule just for funsies. Right.
So now let's hop over. And of course, I let this expire. So give me a second to authenticate in here to the magic. Give me a moment. Oh, I have my stuff on Do Not Disturb because who knows what my buddies are going to text me in the middle of this thing. All right, so what I want to do now is show you the new V3 interface while also showing you the underlying events that occurred while we were doing that token hijacking thing. All right, so I'm going to go back in history here a little bit, and I'm going to say, show me all 100 lines, because that just seems like the right thing to do. Okay. So I'll go into each one of these things in a little bit more detail here in a second, because this is one of the big upgrades. But here's me authenticating, and I'm in the US in South Carolina. And I'm going to click this little thing right here. This is new. So this screen, what it's telling me is, hey, Unify has identified that this device that we just found from NinjaOne is mapped to this account, and we're like 100% certain. We're doing that based on the IP address, the Entra ID matching, the device name matching, the OS matching, and all the way down. And then we're providing, for those folks that like text, a little bit of information on why we did what we did and the two biggest things that caused us to make that decision. So at this point, Unify has 100% certainty that this Adam account just logged in, which is a low-level event, and nothing is crazy. Then what's interesting here is, and I'm going to skip past a little bit further. All right, so I've logged in. Here's my login. Then here's my file that I opened. Again, no big deal. It's just a resignation letter. Low. I'm at 78% at this point on my device. It will ebb and flow based on the data that we get from Microsoft. And then, this is interesting. Multiple SaaS connections from different IP addresses and low. let's pretend Unify didn't exist. That looks like a normal event to me. Oh, you know what? It's probably just Adam using his mobile Wi-Fi or something. I don't know. He bounced over to LA. Don't know why, but still in the US. So this would look like a low-level event. And then, hey, I'm still back to working. Adam's working. But what's really interesting is mixed into all this data, we're seeing authentication failures, again, all low. And then hold on a minute, OAuth used for foreign application. This is the actual token theft of Ben manually putting that in. And I'm showing unknown. And I'm showing this as, hey, this is an unmanaged, unknown device. And we put some text here that just says, hey, it could be, this could be a BYO, or so bring your own device, because, why have the D do its own work? I'll put it out there anyway. A device just needs to be added to management and have an agent installed, or could be a potential attacker. So those are really the three cases that you're going to get an unmanaged, unknown device. This is the actual attack. And so when combined with Respond Now, you could build a rule that basically just says, if an IAM event, OAuth success happens, and it's an unknown device, then lock the account, sign them out, send alarm bells, whatever it is that it needs to happen. So that is the way that Unify does what it does in the real world against a real attack. I am going to stop here for a second.
That's a good question.
Guys.
Nick says, why is it considered a low alert?
Oh, good question. Which one? The authentication?
Yeah, probably the authentication from the unknown device.
So that's this event here. So if we look at this event, the reason why it's a low-level event is this OAuth for all the time, like we do those all day long. In fact, if you look back in my known devices, I had a very similar event as I was logging in from my browser. And because it was happening from the US, and because it's not a risky IP address or a VPN or really anything, this just looks like any other login. And so SaaS Alerts will show this as any other login. Now, Nick, I see your question here. If it were China, it would not be low, because inside SaaS Alerts, we've marked the Adam account. The approved location for the Adam account is the United States. So if it were anywhere but the United States, this low would show to critical.
Nick says VA to LA takes more than a minute to travel. And so, yeah. And with the fun fact that we learned is when Adam and I were setting this up, that IP address that I have hosted in LA that's running the Evil Genex server, Microsoft said it was actually in Virginia. And so it really demonstrated how ineffective geo IP it can really be and really tracking these things.
Yeah, and the locations are updated by the IP owners. So if they haven't updated Aaron with the latest city and country and region associated with that particular ASN block, the address, the physical locations may not make sense. So and this can be a whole nother thing for a whole nother day with some of the other folks on our team from the core side of the house of Manage, but the way that they handle a lot of that today is based on the multiple IP addresses. So seeing more than, I think it's 3, but I could be wrong, IP addresses within a certain amount of time will flag this multiple IP addresses. So I'm going to move on from here, and I'm going to show you the big piece of the UI that's been updated, because I think this is really where the power comes in for those folks. Unfortunately, there's 100 people plus on this call, and they're not going to all use Unify for the first time tomorrow. It sounds like y'all have a pretty good understanding of Unify. So because of that, I'll show you a little more under the hood than I would if it were just never used Unify before. So this column today, it has multiple things that could possibly be, or multiple Unify statuses. So if we click unknown, this unknown unmanaged just basically means we looked in all of the connected products that have devices, and we tried to correlate anything that we could possibly correlate with any level of certainty, and we couldn't find it. So again, it could just be a BYOD. It could be that you need to throw an RMM agent on it, or this could be an actual threat. But that's what the unknown unmanaged means. Incomplete device data here. This just means that from the SaaS provider, we weren't given enough information to do the calculation that we need to do on Unify. So this particular Microsoft event, the reason is IPv6. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit. But there's a reason why we could not do what we needed to do. Next up, let me skip that one for a second. So mapped to this account. This one here is what our known device was prior. Okay, so this one is going to tell us that, hey, this particular device coming from this product is mapped to this account. And I get a little green thing here and a nice certainty with a Apple logo and the underlying data. Next up is mapped to another account. So this one's pretty interesting. So this is Tracy logged in from Adam's MacBook Pro coming from Datto. But hey, we're looking and we're saying like, hey, this Adam's MacBook Pro that this event was most certainly done on, it's mapped to a different person. And actually, and I just found my first bug. This actually should show who it's mapped to, not the Tracy account. This should actually say Adam. But from here now, we have a couple options. We could not take action prior inside Unify from the analysis screen. You'd have to go over to the Unify module. So now we're actually saying, hey, do you want to add this Tracy account to the Adam's MacBook device and make it a shared account? Or, hey, maybe you just shuffled the device around and this really is Tracy's account now. And clicking these two buttons can do one of those two things directly from analysis now. Next up, we have unmapped. So this one is a really cool one as well. So this is saying that, hey, Adam did some activity on the Adam's MacBook Pro coming from Datto, and it's unmapped. And we have a 69% certainty here that this device that this event just performed on is Adam's. And the reason is we've seen a historical amount of data that says that Adam's been using this device. So before, we would kick this event up as an unknown device because it wasn't mapped. We're now dipping in to all of the devices inside of the RMM or anything that's providing us a device. And we're going, hey, do you just want to map this device? Because I'm pretty sure it's Adam's. And then shared, here's the other one. So shared, here is one where Carly has used this particular desktop. And it's saying, hey, it's shared and it is mapped to this account. So Carly is using the shared device that she's supposed to be using. Cool, great. Next up is this one, which is shared, not mapped to this account. So this is saying that Chip here logged in to this desktop, and the desktop is a shared account, as I can tell based on the little two people here, but Chip's not a member of the users or the accounts that are supposed to be using that device. What do you want to do? Do we want to add this account to the shared device and add, a third or a fourth user or fourth account that can use that device? So that is the analysis screen. The other piece that is been updated is obviously the mapping side of the house. So if I pop in here and we looked at the map devices, this was mapped accounts prior. It's now mapped devices. And from within here, we'll see every device that is mapped. You'll notice that there's two of the same ones, and it's because I have one presenting from Datto and one from Ninja, even though they're the same machine. From here, we can see, hey, this is a single device or this is a shared device. And right from here, we can edit the accounts that are allowed to be on these devices. So if I had more potential accounts here, I could add them over. Or, if I'm like, you know what, Adam shouldn't be using this computer anymore, let's throw Adam back over. So all of the accounts on this right-hand side are the things that are the map devices and where magic will happen. Also, these don't actually work yet, but hopefully soon, I'm going to give you guys the ability to push thumbs up or thumbs down in different areas of Unify to basically say like, hey, the data on this screen was really good. Thumbs up, dude. Or could be better, thumbs down. And that's going to allow us to take action on Unify without having to log support requests and say like, why? Why is this doing the way it is? Whew. I think I'm good. That was a lot of words in a short amount of time.
That's really well.
All right, so we talked about what we delivered up until now. We talked about what's coming here June 10th-ish. Now I'm hoping that I'll answer a ton of your questions on the what's coming. So this is the forward-looking part. If we were a public company, I'd probably say something like forward-looking statements, yada, yada, yada. These things have been thought of. Some of them are actually already in the roadmap. Some of them are actually like next up for development in very short order. So IPv6, we're seeing more and more IPv6 happening. And right now, Unify just goes like, nah, 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 don't know it. And obviously that's not good. So IPv6 support's coming soon. Mobile devices and servers imported too. So right now, we will skip over servers when we see them from the RMM. But now that we support shared devices, servers will be coming very soon. Mobile devices also. So I'm looking at the best ways to approach that. There are some RMMs that already support mobile devices. I don't know how great their MDM support is, but there are some big ones. And if you want to throw the MDM products that you use in the chat window, that might help me go where I need to go. So Adagi is an obvious one.
Yeah, it's a big one.
And then actually, since it's here, Intune. So
Have you seen Ninja starting to support
I've
MDM?
seen it. The stuff I've seen on Reddit is that it's nice, but it's not there yet, is what I've kind of been seeing. So pull all devices, even if incomplete data. So another design decision I made early on was like, if we go to the RMM and the RMM doesn't have all the data for a device that we need to do the magic, then skip over it and only import the devices from the RMM that we can actually do something with. For instance, enable in central does not store a public IP address as part of the main device. So unless in central, unless you set up a PowerShell script to write a public IP address to a custom field, and that public IP address is an IPv4 address, we're going to skip it. So in the future, we're going to pull them in, and then we're going to show you what data is missing. And that will help you troubleshoot configuration on your side. The other thing that as we start to connect more and more products, for instance, Intune and an RMM, we're expecting that we're going to start to see duplicate devices. And figuring out how we're going to merge those devices into a single view is something I haven't quite cracked yet. The obvious is machine name, IP, OS, and kind of the same things that we're doing, maybe a MAC address or serial number. Just got to figure out on the data side how we're going to do that and how we're going to display it in the UI. But the goal now is to unify the Unify devices. Intune, mentioned it earlier, but we're seeing more and more folks rolling out Intune based on Microsoft dropping it into a lower level of licensing. It also happens to have a decent following for MDM. So we'll start to see Intune devices show up in Unify sometime. And then power filters. I can't speak a ton on that, but picture the allow list stuff that we do today, or the whitelisting that we do today, but like way, way, way more powerful. My goal is to have Unify integrated into the power filters module or release that we're going to do later this year. And then finally, BYOD. So one of the biggest reasons that I would come up with for not implementing Unify and turning on Respond is the end users who are using their own device at home to log in, and the fact that those are not RMN protected, and those would always show up as unknown devices, unknown unmanaged, which is kind of annoying, honestly. So I've modeled out a way that we can address the BYOD solution, but I'm actually kind of sitting back and seeing what Power Filters does, because I'm thinking that that might actually be good enough, but we'll see. So that was a lot. Now it is purely question time.
Yeah,
I don't
17
know.
of them.
Yeah, no kidding. So I'm going to take a drink here real quickly, and then we'll roll through. All right. So will Unify interface with Intune, Andy? Yes, it will one day. Next one up is Barry. It sounds like we would also need MDM as well for this to make sense. I agree. Mobile devices is obviously one of the things that I mentioned coming soon, because I do see that that's another place where Unify kind of goes, no, 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 no. We act like IPv6 doesn't exist, and we act like mobile doesn't exist. I'd like to fix that. Stephen King asked the same thing. Obvious, but what about Intune? So coming. Alrighty. Eric asks, device ID. Oh, back to that. Device IDs are only for Windows, not Macs. My experience is that it seems that way, but the data that I'm looking at says otherwise. And I think when you're doing things like Adigy and then linking them to Microsoft, that is the glue that is required to light up the Entra device IDs for Macs. I don't know for certain. I haven't run it down yet. Luckily, I run on a Mac, so it's an area that I'm very familiar with. I just haven't played with the Entra side of the house yet. All right. Andy Rowe, originally, let's see if he followed up. No. So Andy asked me a question about labeling devices as shared. I don't know whether that answered or not. I'm going to call it answered, and you can ask another one if I didn't. All right, I've got DJ here. Will there be a moment where we can rely on Entra device ID without RMM, meaning having the SaaS Alerts apps already in an MS tenant or a Unify app in the tenant, pull the devices with the users? Why map them through an RMM if devices and users already Entra? As an MSSP, we do not deploy an RMM tool, holding us back from Unify. So great question. With the Intune integration that I will be doing into Unify, I believe I will likely answer most of what you asked.
Mm-hmm.
The question you didn't ask, or maybe you did, and I'll answer, is, we do support many apps beyond Microsoft. A lot of folks come to us just for Microsoft, but with App Wizard really truly gaining steam and us starting to do app integrations above and beyond Microsoft at a fast clip, the Entra device ID, while it's nice, is not needed or is not able to provide us the end-to-end solution for those other apps. For instance, Dropbox doesn't know anything about an Entra device ID. Slack doesn't know anything. Ninja RMM doesn't have an Entra device ID. Google wouldn't have an Entra device ID. So in those instances, keeping the native core functionality of Unify makes a ton of sense and honestly protects you and your clients better than just the Entra device ID. All right, Daniel asks, does this update allow for the, quote, lazy mapping scenario we had kicked around, moving the mapping from mapped directly to user to mapped known within the org? So the answer with that is it's based on a support call I had with them. Yes, it does. That's where those map to other user, unmapped, or shared device, not user is used. Check out the Unify statuses that will indicate that here shortly. Chris, would there be a potential to integrate a log shipper like NX log to provide the device mapping SANS and RMM tool? Cool answer. So we investigated that. We looked at having an endpoint on our side that does receive device data that's posted. The part that I could not wrap my head around and ultimately threw it out because what keeps an attacker from throwing junk data into that endpoint and potentially doing an end around Unify? If you've got a great answer to that, I'd love to hear it. But at this point, it didn't seem like an obvious answer without having to roll out like a full-blown agent, and we don't want a full-blown agent. Peter, dumb question. No dumb questions. I know that we classify Unify as an MDR, but what other classifications would it fall under for the sakes of cyber insurance and regulatory compliance? Peter, I am not touching that one with a 10-foot pole, my man. I would reach out to your account manager and see if they can provide you a corporate accepted or acceptable solution to that one. I just honestly don't know, and I don't want to guess and be wrong.
I was gonna say I could guess.
Yeah, I could guess, but I'm not gonna. I'll let account managers handle that. Andy, Unify and Kaseya's MDM. Would you add this to the Unify integration list? How to establish an onto-device ID to be consistent for mobile devices? Same thoughts for Intune. You are welcome to request a specific integration to any product by reaching out to your account manager, and they will throw it on the list, and I get to work on it and do it based on the number of your clients that I can protect with one swoop. Alrighty. Next up, Rua. We use total. The IP address for the devices change often. We ran into false positives in the past. Was this resolved? I remember you were the first person I worked with on this total thing. I've worked with a few folks since. The real answer is the onto-device ID is the best way to manage IP addresses changing all the time. Highly recommend you implement that, and it will answer or solve probably 98% of your issues. The apps outside of the Microsoft space are the ones that we'd have to be worried about. But today, a couple of days ago, last time I checked, Microsoft is the only Respond app that we support. So the onto-device ID really would be your solution to turning on Respond. Whew, man, I'm like, I love you guys. This is like amazing. A lot of questions. All right. Actually, I think 95% of them are Andy. Thanks, Andy. Andy wrote, do RMMs trigger? I'm actually going to just start giving you fake names so it sounds like other people are asking me questions. John Smith, do RMMs trigger any of these alerts when connecting remotely? Ben, do you want to take a stab at that? I don't know that I understand the question. Do RMMs trigger any of these alerts when connecting remotely?
I think he was maybe talking about remote connection with like Splashtop or TeamViewer or something like that. I don't believe so. That would be, but it would handle the authentication that has to happen before those remote connections can be established.
All right.
I believe it depends on the RMM. So some of the RMMs we ingest like technical activity and everything else, and some of them we're only ingesting and using with Unify. We're not actually pulling the logs from the RMM specifically. Typically, it's due to a lack of compatibility with their API.
That is true. Yeah. So I integrate to the furthest level that I'm able to based on what's given to me by the application. I know for a fact, like Ninja, I do get remote control activity in the activity logs, but other RMMs only do Unify, like you mentioned. Andy wrote onboarding, etc. I'm sure that was something contextual as I was talking, but I have no idea what that means. Andy wrote, what about, is it SACE, S-A-S-E, SACE?
Mhm.
Okay, SACE aware for Unify, alert when a non-SACE device connects. That would be like a total thing, Ben?
I think so. You might need some
Yeah.
clarification on that.
I mean, you could allow list, whitelist the IP that the SACE uses, possibly,
Everybody's saying
or
SACE is sassy.
sassy. Is that how you say it? Sassy?
Oh
All right.
yeah, sassy. Okay, that
All
makes
right.
sense.
Thanks for that, Chris or Sean and
Everybody.
everybody else.
He
Thank you
said
so
yes.
much. I appreciate you.
Said
Yeah.
Nick saying yes from
Sassy. All
total.
right. So sassy. That tells you how little I knew about that. I apologize.
So I guess that
I
answered
myself.
your question as far that probably was answered by the intra ID. So if they're
Okay.
referring to total.
I'm just gonna click answered because I feel like it's like ringing the bell. I answered it. Don't know what. All right, Greg, will respond rules be able to recognize, utilize these new Unify statuses? Greg, great question. I had written myself a note to talk about that and completely forgot. So I appreciate you. Those 400 plus rules that we have today that are currently using Unify, we have a migration script that's going to happen as part of our release that's basically going to adopt the new standards in replace of what you have. So for instance, if you had a rule that triggered on, before the rule would look something like, is Unify possible? Does the user have a map device? Is it not mobile? And a confidence rating of blah. Most of those will be replaced with just the Unify status is unknown device. And so we'll upgrade the rules, but we're not going to give you the new functionality. You'll need to go in and edit your existing rule. But like for like, with the new terminology and the way that they work, those will be upgraded automatically. Alrighty. Steve King, I would say look into the Microsoft Entra registered devices. This is non-Intune like you just said. Okay, thank you. Mark, is there somewhere to see a list of currently integrated apps? Website, maybe? Reach out to your account manager.
Yep.
Cameron, man, this is like almost like 2 o'clock now. Okay.
Yep, we got
Rolling
2
through, and
minutes.
I'm trying to get to the bottom of these. Sorry. Do you have any guidance or plans for Mac OS devices? Not yet, Cameron. Coming soon. Daniel, as of June 10th-ish update, I like ish, thank you. Will a match on Entra ID allow Unify to evaluate even if IP6 is used or unable to evaluate? You might be the person that logged that support request that I fixed the bug as of about a week ago. If that's the one you're talking about, where IPv6 choked up Entra device ID. On the new release, if Entra exists and IPv6 exists, we will ignore IPv6, but we will use the Entra ID to evaluate Unify. And Entra swings it up 50 and down 50%. So I think the answer is yes. If you run into problems, let us know. Chris, log shipper question. Could you only accept the info from a central source like a SIM and whitelist just that source IP? This is related to other MSSP question. That is a possibility, Chris. We were looking at it more like a PowerShell script that would run from like a Windows task scheduler on each individual device, which gave us the heartache on the security side, but did not look at it as a SIM item. And that could be interesting. Chris, you've got my email. I would say use it. Be interested to hear more about that. Whew. All right, with 2 minutes to spare. I guess my call to action for you guys would be, if you're not currently using Unify, you can turn it on by connecting your RMM and mapping the first organization or all of the organizations in your RMM. There is no downside to doing that at all. We will purely enhance the events. We will not take action. We will not flag new alerts by just connecting Unify and Unify only. You get the benefit out of the box of getting the additional context. Things start happening when you pair it with Respond. So if you're on this meeting and you like what you saw, there is literally no downside to connecting your RMM and mapping those first machines and getting the benefit of Unify and the enhanced things. That's what I would ask of you guys. And you'll help me drive my number up over that 25%, which would be amazing. Ben, anything I missed? Michelle, anything I missed?
I don't think so. I think we got a lot in an hour, packed in good amount. So that's pretty cool.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for joining. Really appreciate the time. I hope we wowed you with this new release, and just know that we are constantly innovating, and your feedback helps us, and more will be coming soon. Catch y'all later.
Thanks, guys.